Hello, everyone. My name is James Strong. This is the SIG Networking Ingress NGINX project meeting. And with that is a CNCF community meeting. And because of that, we follow the code of conduct, which is be kind to each other. If you have any issues, please report those to myself, Ricardo, or the SIG Networking leads. And with that, we can go ahead and get started. We've got a couple new faces on the call, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the issues that we have with the release, and we'll probably triage some issues or probably check on the Helm release that's coming up. So with that, new folks, would you like to introduce yourselves, talk about what your interest in the project is?
Certainly. Hi, I'm Rob DiPolito. I'm a engineering manager for a startup called Ada, and we are Ingress NGINX users, and so we're just um, looking to become more involved and learning about some of the ins and outs of it. And so we just wanted to be members here and listen in, and we're doing a bit of a deep dive ourselves and trying to understand some of the behavior. And so we thought maybe we could have some questions if there's time.
Yeah. I don't know how well I'll be able to answer them on the spot, but we'll do what we can, and we can always have more conversation in issues in Slack. So thanks for joining, Robert.
And I can just briefly introduce myself. My name is Kosta Jukic. I actually work together with Robert. I'm a DevOps engineer on his team. And here to just, like Robert said, kind of listen in, get a little more involved in the Ingress NGINX community in particular. And yeah, we'll see in the end. Yeah, if there's room to just kind of field a couple of, maybe hopefully high level questions, we can have that, but if not, that's perfectly okay as well. We're just happy to be part of this.
Yeah, I did not pull up any issues, and there was none in the Slack channel that we wanted to discuss. I know there's a couple features that folks are still working on through the review, and I know there's some triage. The numbers for our issues keep going up, but we're just not closing issues, and I mean that's always been a problem. But if you guys have a specific one, we can talk about that. There's nothing. That's what this is for. It's for us to talk about problems that we're facing. And usually the way that we do that is through issues. So if you guys have one you want to talk about, we definitely can. I'm just going back and looking through some of the past action items, making sure we've covered everything. We have not talked about this one. This one I think requires a little bit more conversation from Ricardo. I think he has some questions on it. Yeah, yeah, that one needs more follow-up than what I've got right now. Okay. Long, were there any open issues that you've been looking at? I know you've been all over the place with helping out with closing issues and putting things out. Is there anything on the top of your list?
Nothing that can be discussed here. It's all discussed on the issue itself.
On the issues? Okay. All right. I don't have any particular ones. I was just going to use this. If no one joined, I was going to use the time to just triage the issues that I know I have open and assigned myself.
There's a PR though. If you find time, if you think there is time, we can talk about one PR.
Yeah, that's fine. We can add that. So we'll let Robert and Costa have a conversation and share the issue that they've been facing. If you guys want to go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. Costa, you want to just maybe drive here?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't obviously want to take up too much time for this. We don't have a particular issue added for this quite yet, though.
Okay.
We want to just kind of get maybe an opinion on whether or not this is something that might be tunable, like a tunable problem that we're running into, or if it is like a deeper underlying issue. But the general thing that we've been seeing in one of our largest production clusters, where we
reload times.
Actually, it's what we'll see is CPU spikes. that cause the readiness probe to fail. And they'll happen kind of sporadically across, we run roughly about 100, 125 replica sets. And yeah, they'll just kind of happen sporadically across various replicas of the Ingress NGINX pod. And yeah, it'll just force a restart. It doesn't necessarily result in like any process kills or anything of that nature. But yeah, it's just some unusual behavior we've been trying to kind of figure out and doing a little bit of debugging, but kind of it's obviously something that's tough to do in production. So yeah, just wanted to kind of hear if there might be any thoughts on like how we can better explore this and maybe make a more informed, open a more informed issue if we need to.
Yeah, I know there is one open, I think actually two open issues and PRs on folks trying to work through like the sequential reloads or trying to make it a little less of an issue on larger clusters. Because what we see a lot of is when folks have ingress objects into the thousands, it causes issues with like what you're talking about, like long reload times or connection dropping or issues with CPU and memory. As of right now, I think the guiding knowledge is to try to split up the ingress based off of some kind of uh I don't know, nomenclature that you guys would have. So maybe different app sections, things like that. So
Sure.
do you have, I mean, one of the biggest things that we see too is like when people put limits on the controllers. I'm assuming you don't have limits on the controllers. This is probably just CPU spike and
Yes, as far as I know, unless maybe we might across maybe like specific ingresses, but generally I'm not aware of like um any high level limits that we might have on the controller itself. Um yeah, for the most part, where I'd say we're using defaults, we do run a couple of extra worker processes per core. So maybe that might have something to do with our CPU spikes. We'll typically run uh, two worker processes per core rather than the recommended one. But
one of the other ones too is, and I don't know if this one has been fixed yet, and you can scan the issues for it, is that there was an issue with C groups V2 not understanding the resources available to it. Well, because the controller not understanding the CPU and memory available to it. So that I think has caused issues for folks in the past. So I don't know if you're running on newer instances that have C group V2, that might also cause some issues.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's a specific issue open for it. So I can go back and look at a couple of the other like
Okay.
issues with folks having with this. But
I
I
see
think
a recent-ish one from around this time last year, generate correct output on num CPU when using C groups too.
that's probably it.
Yeah, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, we'll do a bit of digging and see if we're seeing the right number of worker processes.
Yeah, and if you want to put in the issue and we can have a conversation, we can continue the conversation there. But this isn't, what you're telling me isn't new. And I know
Gotcha.
that we've had issues with larger clusters. One of our other new maintainers actually is from Giant Swarm, so he might have, and they're helping us maintain the Helm chart, but he might also have some at scale conversations with you all, so I can get you in contact with him. He wasn't able to join because he was in a real work meeting.
No, of course, and we all understand that, like, yeah, this is not always like the primary job for for people. So we want to be cognizant of that and not be taking up too much time with issues like this and in this kind of forum. But obviously, yeah, really appreciate the time and the feedback. We'll definitely look into splitting up, finding some kind of nomenclature on how we could like split up maybe into multiple ingress controllers. Because yeah, we do run a significant amount of ingress objects in production.
Costa,
Yeah.
hold on. In the very beginning, you started by saying it is spike and then readiness probe, right?
That's right. Yeah. So typically we'll see, CPU for most of our replicas be around, 300 or so millicores. And then what will happen is one of them will just kind of randomly spike, use up, all the available cores on the
No.
particular node.
I was going in different direction. So what I want to just clarify is, do you correlate the spikes to a change event, or is it run-of-the-mill regular usage, no changes to any ingress from your side? It's just normal usage and just the load traffic causing spike, and then readiness probe getting involved and what leading up to a reload of the pod.
I think it's more the latter that you're saying there. We're not able to correlate it with any particular change, though like we will see reloads happening kind of sporadically across the ingress controller. But I think that's just due to running so many replicas. I'm not sure if maybe anytime upstream needs to be updated, perhaps a reload occurs.
That should be all handled in Lua. It's usually like changing of secrets and things that have to be like a config map change and things like that. Things that have to be reload the controller.
So, do you have monitoring in place that actually helps you get down to a specific pod on a specific node, which or a group of controller pods that had the spike, or the node that had the spike?
Yeah, we do have monitoring both so everything is integrated in with Datadog for us.
So you can get the actual pod name
Yes.
or list of names.
Yep. We can get a list of names.
Okay.
I think
So
add that, and probably let's a copy of the log output from the controller.
yeah.
Also.
So if it is traffic load and either affinity or without affinity, just a node, a specific pod being picked up, and then there is CPU on that specific node, being less available or just temporarily,
Some
few
of
seconds
the
maybe. Yeah.
That's okay. One of the other things too, and I don't know if you can do this, but having dedicated nodes just for the controllers.
Yeah, that's what I was looking to.
That's another thing you could look into. So that way no other workloads are affecting the ingress controllers.
Yeah, I think
And when you say replica sets, how many replicas are you running of the controller?
Quite a few, and that's something we've actually been experimenting with as well. So we used to run a lot more. We max out at 125 now. We used to actually run closer to 500 and found that would kind of grind things to an unceremonious halt.
Yeah,
so we've been lowering that and making it
okay.
more appropriate. Yeah.
One of the things, and this is just future to look into, is that we're looking to what we're calling the control plane data plane split, so that the control plane from the ingress controller's perspective can scale separately from the workers. We're in, I would say, even pre-alpha phases of that. Ricardo, one of the other maintainers, has got a working example where we can actually scale the NGINX workers in their own containers. Versus right now, everything's all in one. So the controller and the NGINX workers are all running inside the same pod. And that can cause some issues from a scaling perspective as well. So that might help the situation as well as the two other things that we're doing around the reloads. So I'll pull up those two issues and send it to you. And I don't think we're even we'll do probably a beta release like we've done, like a release candidate where we did it with like 1.0 and we did it with CH Fruit. I don't know the timing on that. So I would say probably 2 or 3 months out from being able to have a release candidate for folks to test that, because it's also a precursor for us for Gateway API. As
Gotcha.
as I've learned, trying to start the implementation for it is that we need to be able to have multiple instances of the proxy running for each of the gateways. So we have to have the data plane control plane split before we can do Gateway API.
Mhm. Gotcha. Yeah, be happy to do some testing there.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but if you're saying that it is CPU spike and then readiness probe failing for it, then
Mhm.
first step is not share CPU for those pods, and like James was saying, dedicate node for the controller pod, so that even if more CPU is required, it's not choked by other workloads on that.
I see. I see. That makes sense. Yeah, because what we see with the CPU spike is it'll go up to some seemingly random maximum, but we believe that the max that it goes up to is whatever's available on that node. And the CPU is being shared beyond a certain limit. Like we'll request, like 4 cores, but there might be 16 available on the particular machine. So maybe we'll see it spike up to like say 10 cores and hold steady for a few minutes until the readiness probe fails and it gets cycled. And this doesn't happen too often. Like I said, we've got over 100 replicas, and maybe we see it happening every, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes or so. It's unclear if it's related to load spikes. It might be. I think we definitely see it more often during like peak hours. So I guess that does correlate. But yeah, if there's any suggestions on getting helpful logs here, I don't know if we need to turn on debug logging, maybe for like just like a small portion of pods. We could try that via like a separate Ingress controller. But does the standard error log give sufficient enough information in this case?
I plead the fifth.
Yeah, because all we'll see is just, like a bunch of connection refused.
Yeah.
The readiness probe fails, and that's about it.
Yeah, dedicate a node so that CPU is not shared.
Mhm.
And that will be the first data point to make decisions.
Okay, sounds like a plan. We'll do that, and we'll open up a case if we still see this happening then.
Awesome. And yeah, I would do the C group V2 investigation and see if that's causing issues. I wonder, that makes me think about putting something in the debug log of like how much memory is being used. That'd be interesting. I don't know if that'd be helpful though. Sorry, I'm just thinking aloud now.
No, of course.
All right.
So from monitoring, it's simple. You need to correlate two things: the pod on which you got the CPU spike, that nodes both the CPU usage at that specific timestamp, as well as the inode usage. So both will kind of go away if you dedicate a node. That's the point.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the inode limits here. That's an interesting point as well. Yeah, we'll need to look into kernel limits as well, I suppose, here, because we haven't modified anything beyond just the default that comes along with the node, so that it's very possible we could be running into some limits there causing termination. Would that show in the NGINX error logs at all, or would that be more so in the nodes logs?
No, on your monitoring system, enable monitoring for inodes. CPU is already there, so inodes, and then if possible contract. But even after all that, just dedicate node. I think that data point is what is critical. That's all.
Understood. Thank you so
So
much for the feedback, Long.
yeah, so the node is idling. It's got idle CPU for, and then when the spike comes, it helps out. So rest of the time you pay money for it, or but
Yeah,
just when the spike comes, that's the whole deal.
sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and spend about 10 minutes or so, because I do want to check on before we do the issue triage, just so that the community is aware. So the issue with the Helm release is that we have taken to doing the same kind of release flow that we do with the controller now. So now we'll only release the controller and the Helm chart from the release branch. The old way is that we would be releasing everything from main and do a tag. And we'd moved the controller to doing release branches because of some of the break fixes that we've been trying to do that may or may not be that we don't want to put in newer releases, or so we can handle like 2 releases at a time. So we've got 1.10 and 1.9 right now. We didn't do that for the Helm controller, and we've noticed that we were making some changes that were breaking, that wouldn't work specifically with the release branches. And in doing that, trying to change that, we also found that we're trying to move to using kpromo, which is what helps us do the migration of the registry promotion, so taking it from staging into production, instead of doing that and crafting that by hand, letting kpromo do that. And there were some issues with the 1.10 release because there was another 1.4.0. So again, we can go on a little bit more detail if folks want, but like we can rebuild as many times as we want in staging at a specific tag. So where the website controller had a newer 1.4.0 tag SHA than the one that was in kpromo. So when it went to go do an upgrade, there was 2 1.4.0s that didn't let the 1.10 go through. And so we had to go backpedal on all of that. That got the controller fixed. And then we found out that we were making release changes that weren't compatible in main for the control for the Helm chart. So we had to go back through and revert all of the changes for the Helm chart, get Helm chart releases working on the release branches, and then release 1.10.1 and 4.10.1 for the Helm chart. So yeah, a lot of back and forth. It should all be working now, and 4.10.1 should be released probably by the end of this meeting if it hasn't already ran through and finished all of the CI stuff. So the next one for 4.10.2, or whenever we bump it to 4.11, again, that's with Marco and team on when we're going to bump it if we need to. So yeah, always fun when we're releasing the controller and all of our images. And with that, let's go ahead and look at some of the open issues that we have. Long, is there any that top of mind that we should look at, or should I just start newest to oldest?
We can get going with the.
Okay. I think we can close this one. You gave him the answer, and that's how you do it. I'm just gonna go ahead and close this. This is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get that 500 count down. It's always in the back of my mind, the issues that we have.
If you want, let's kind of make it a point going forward that if there is no responses for a long time, we can start closing and tell them to reopen if they want. If we go that way, I can start closing issues that have not been responded to forever.
I would say if someone hasn't responded in a month to what we've asked them, go ahead and close it. And yeah, just use that verbiage.
Okay.
But yeah, if folks haven't, if they're having a true issue and they haven't responded in a month, there's nothing we can do, and I don't want to keep these open and languish. Because if it was a true issue, like a problem or a bug, we'd have the engagement.
So just it's very clear. One thing is very obvious, right? That because we have so many open issues only because people stopped following. So, and then there is this other policy we have, right, that it should go stale, we should not close it. So it's because of that we have such a large count.
Yeah, I need to talk to Ricardo and Carlos about that because Carlos set up the stale bot for us. I don't know if they can also add a label so we could just look at the ones that aren't I guess quote unquote stale. I need to. So between this one, the 390X, and the Power PC one that was today, I don't even think we could actually build Power PC, or I don't want to extend our build time. Our build time's already 4 hours because of having to compile NGINX and then adding another architecture. I really just don't think that's feasible. And I asked the person to come to the community meeting who opened that. So we'll see what comes of that. I honestly didn't think PowerPC was still used. Dude, I don't even know if I didn't know if Kubernetes, if KK even puts out PowerPC.
Yeah, I think your response was quite accurate, and that's good enough. You can leave it at that.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was just the NGINX 125 build that caused the 390X issues. And I don't know if Ricardo. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what it was. Okay. I'll keep it open because we probably should look at trying to get that fixed. But again, if no one else is stepping forward to help fix that, I think getting the control plane and the data plane split working is a little bit higher priority than the 390X issue. I just wanted to go on the record saying that when folks ask about it. Okay. NGINX, Ingress, TCP services, source IP not preserved. I just need to sit down. I'm going to Boston this weekend. I just need to sit down and write up the documentation on this because everybody doesn't set it up properly. And we get this question all the time. Because he set it to local. It doesn't say the question we need answered is what kind of load balancer are they using? It does matter which load balancer is using. Calico doesn't matter. The CNI shouldn't matter. Are we already going back and forth on this?
Yeah, I think we have a FAQ on that, and for some people, I've explained on Slack calls. Basically, it's just some people didn't deep dive into the fact that hops need to retain the information. Metal LB doesn't support proxy protocol, and people on bare metal literally have no choice if they use metal LB for using proxy protocol. That's about it.
Do they say that they're using metal LB?
Oh, some people actually this may not be this issue, but other people are trying to do HA proxy in front of it. Somebody is trying to do F5 in front of it, and then running Ingress controller and cluster IP and expecting client information to be retained across hops. So I've had those discussions at least with 3 people. So
yeah, no, we have this conversation all the time, and we just need to document it clearly, because it's not really documented very clearly on our docs.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
in 3 different places.
Yeah. So we are not explicit in documentation that about what specific load balancers support proxy protocol and all that. So
That's not on us. We just need to specify that if you're using an L7 load balancer, you need to have the X forwarded for an external
Right.
an external local, and
Right.
if you're using L4, you need to have the proxy you need to be able to support proxy protocol.
Yeah. So yeah, our documentation we can go ahead and make it more explicit and detailed, but there are some unfair expectations as well. So I answered some on the issues. For example, if you do traffic policy to local, but you don't have a pod, then
It fails.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. So those details, I think we should put in a documentation as to. But that's all like extra work. Like Kubernetes already says that if you don't have a pod, then you can't route. So you should.
Yeah, when it's at the local. And I misspelled it. Okay. All right. Let's see what they come back with. Predefined server snippet that can be referenced and used in Ingress. That's a feature. Admin ops creates predefined snippets in a custom NGINX template. Admin rolls out features by replacing Unix template. DevOps use custom annotations. A custom NGINX template's gonna,
He basically saw that there's a feature on the NGINX incorporated controller.
Yeah.
He wants the same feature here.
Okay.
That's not. It's not possible. We can't. There's a lot of code defining what the snippets do and so on. So it's not.
Yeah.
We can't. We are not designed to do things like that.
Yeah, because the NGINX template's built in our NGINX image. I don't know how we would get how you'd mount a different template in there.
We straight away allow people open up the NGINX conf via snippets, but they want predefined snippets written into the controller code. That's not feasible.
Yeah. I just don't. I'd be interested to see how they do it. How the NGINX controller does it. Again, this is one of those things where it's a feature. This seems like Gateway API was meant to answer this question, to be able to do different things. Different folks have different responsibilities.
Correct. That's right.
I need to follow up on this one and just write that up.
But they're actually expecting a short form identification via annotation or something like that. And all the heavy lifting is done in the controller code. So it's literally impossible to write snippets for the thousands of behaviors, Nginx directives that combinations of that people would want.
Costa, this is one of the issues, kind of what I was talking to you about. Are you not actually seeing any issues with your webhooks failing with those large number of ingress objects? Because that's one of the other issues we see with folks have at scale.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've seen any webhook failures, or I'll check our logs for this error though.
Well, it'd be end users would probably see this issue, where it would just they would sit and wait and hang on an ingress update.
It comes down to the same thing. I had a Zoom session with this user. It comes down to the same thing. They are basically saying they're able to manage short ones, the ones that wait for 10 seconds is okay, but anything that goes or live with him, I saw something going up to 18 seconds. But they're basically query on this issue is they have a large volume of 30 seconders, and they want to know if something can be done about that. Nothing can be done except the same solution. Not have a 30-second incident at all. Like dedicate CPU for it. And the best way to dedicate CPU for these parts is dedicate nodes. So for somebody really in this soup, it's a problem, because 30-second responses has a cascading effect on their production. But this user kind of synced up on that information, and they're working on it.
I mean, yeah, this makes sense because we've got to validate each one of those paths.
It's simply a cause. The basic cause is out of contract. That node, just for a few seconds, runs out of contract, and then there is no new connection possible. So it has this kind of effects. So in the case of the gentleman who talked about it in this call, same thing. Run out of contract, then even though ports are open, even though there is no packet filter for the traffic and all that, just for those few seconds, there is no, there's like the entire contract table is full of established or time wait connections, so new connections cannot be established. It's TCP buffer limitation. So when this host is being shared with workloads and so on, the CPU gets starved. Then all these are. This is one. This 20-second or 30-second delay is one effect. The issue about what is the health checks, health probes is other effect. The third effect is the big known one that we know of, right? The NGINX reload. So same thing. NGINX building up huge config file reload and sharing that node with other workloads. It's sharing CPU. So if a node is dedicated with a lot of idle time, nothing else using CPU, when the spike comes, and either for NGINX reload or for new connections and so on, it will all be different from a shared node experience.
Yeah, gotcha. So you got an F5 load balancer in front of the controller. SUSE Linux. This is gonna have to be my last one, folks. I have a customer meeting at noon. I don't see anything. Close the connection while reading response header from upstream. This just looks like a configuration issue.
So this issue, and there's one more issue about another person using FI load balancer, but occasionally getting 5x's and 4x's is the same thing. They terminate elsewhere, much above the Ingress controller, and then your connection is established to the controller, and then from controller to backend, the time delay or whatever the whatever the workload pod is doing. Occasionally they get these errors. Same resource used up. So after a few seconds, everything recovers. So things work. Just briefly for some amount of time, there is a problem of resource usage.
Yeah. I want to chalk it up and blame it on F5, but I can't. I don't know enough to switching it to HTTP 1 with the connection we use. Also, I don't know with them setting all of the proxy stuff, so I would just have to try to replicate it.
Yeah, we don't even know what FI is doing, transparent or layer 7 or
Yeah.
throttling.
I kind of want to test this one. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to end a little early, folks, so I can get ready for my next meeting. Robert, Costa, thank you for joining. And yeah, we do this every 2 weeks, but if you even after you make those changes, let us know. Just open up an issue and we can continue the dialogue there. So thanks for joining.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and help, James Long. Really appreciate it. It's been super helpful for us.
Yeah, thank you both.
Hopefully. All right, folks. Till next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Take care.